Hey folks, today's video we're going to talk about how to really bring your game world to life, and that's with diverse NPCs. So you might be asking yourself, like, why do I need to have diverse NPCs? Why can't I just have like the same 5 that just show up all the time? Well, it's not going to feel very real. Like, the real world is not full of the same 5 people just over and over and over. There's a wide range of people's backgrounds and cultures and experiences and physical appearances. So when you have a wider range of diversity within your NPCs, it is going to feel more real. Also, your players are going to remember your NPCs when they are unique and different. Like, if all of your NPCs are kind of the same couple of different variations, it's going to be really hard for your players to remember who they all are. But if there's something that stands out that is unique or different about them, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to remember, like, oh, hey, this was the Dragonborn who has a glass eye. Or, oh, this was the elf who really loved pink stuff. Like, it can be either they remember something about the physical appearance or something about the characteristic. This was the super grumpy human that just wanted nothing to do with us, but was happy to sell us things that were overpriced. Whatever it is, like, if you make those NPCs unique and have these different qualities to them, it's going to be a lot easier for your player characters or your players to remember them. It's also going to be easier for you as the game master to kind of like clue them into who the NPC is by just having a few keywords to either describe their description or describe their personality, like how they are acting and behaving when the player characters run into them again. Representation and belonging matters. When players see themselves represented at the table, that is within the characters of the world, that's going to make them feel more welcome at the table. That's going to make them feel more comfortable and give them something familiar to look at, as well as to seeing like them reflected. Like, when you see a character in media that you identify with, you're probably going to be more connected to that storyline, even if it's not a character that like looks like you, but if it has an aspect that you're like, I went through something similar, I can relate. You're also going to have stronger stories because you're having these different kind of perspectives and characters. Yes, you as the game master are going to have your own perspective, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But by having characters that are kind of coming from different backgrounds and different experiences or different viewpoints, that allows for a lot of different kinds of stories, rather than if you just kind of have all of similar stuff and it's like, well, how many different stories can you end up telling with just the same 5 templates? Okay, so we've talked about why it can be very helpful and great to have diverse NPCs, but how do you actually do this? First, I will suggest use random table generators. This can be very helpful if you find yourself being stuck in like, you know what, I do keep kind of making the same handful of different NPCs, and it can help break you out of that rut by just taking at least like, okay, the ancestry and some of the background or description elements and randomizing that. And then you can fill in from there. It can provide these starting points that then you can fill things in. And you might even take the ones that you already feel like, I have plenty of elves, I have plenty of dwarves, let's add in a few more, and take those off the table so you don't generate more by accident. Mix up archetypes with ancestries. Like, you know, the dwarven miner, the dwarven smith. That is very traditional, but what if you have an ancestry that doesn't usually get mixed with that, like archetype or job? That's going to provide some interesting, like, how did this NPC fall into this line of work? you know, that's going to add some interest and story elements to it. Or also, even if you have the traditional like dwarven miner, maybe there's another element to that archetype that is not necessarily the norm. Even if you don't fully randomize the character, using some tables to randomize some traits can be very useful. That way, if you're like, I know I need to have these specific like archetypes or you know, we're in a region where it's all dwarves. Well, you can still roll. So there are a number of different random tables out there to help kind of randomize elements of their appearance or elements of their characteristics, their behaviors and stuff like that, to add a little bit of diversity and difference to the characters. A big thanks to all of our patrons, especially Alicia. If you enjoy our videos, make sure you're subscribed and then head on over to our Patreon page and check out the perks of being a patron. As far as physical traits go, I like to have 1 or 2 physical traits that kind of stand out for the character. And I try to make these things that are much more the character's choice, like how they express themselves, rather than just like, oh, there's a tiefling standing before you and they have horns. But perhaps instead describe what kind of ornamentation they have on their horns. Do they have a hood up? Are they trying to hide their horns? Do they have gold wires intricately entwined around the horns and are, you know, showing it off and very flashy? Like, those 2 different things tell you a lot about that character. You know, one who maybe wants to kind of hide a little bit about an aspect of themselves, and another one who maybe is like, yeah, I'm gonna be showboaty. I want everyone to know I'm a tiefling and I have horns. Even if a character has like a disability, they're missing a limb or an eye, something that is very visible and will make that character stand out, perhaps it's focusing on like what is on the eye patch, or what kind of prosthetic do they have? Like, what were the choices that they put into that? Because, you know, the fact that they are missing an eye, there's probably a story behind that, or a limb. Like, there might be a story behind that. But then the choices that they make for what they choose to do about that is going to tell you a lot more about the character than just the fact that they're missing an eye. Okay, so I said I'd touch on this a little bit. So as far as like bringing other experiences in, like, be mindful of stereotypes, especially if you're drawing from real world inspiration. Try to do so respectfully and do a little bit of research and tread lightly, I would say. Be very mindful of any stereotypes. Now, it's okay to have characters that fall into stereotypes. Just be aware of them and be mindful of it. And try not to do cliches or be very purposeful with your cliches. Like, I have seen some fun, like, stereotypes and cliches, but it ends up being like the character is aware of it and they're playing into that, and then, you know, there's a twist or something like that. That can be fun, but tread lightly with stereotypes and cliches. Keep them in mind, and because we're all going to eventually like have a moment where it's like, I did do that cliche, I did do that stereotype. Like, give yourself a little bit of grace and find ways that you can kind of break out of that stereotype. Do slow reveals, not necessarily loud labels. You don't have to give your players everything all at once. Like, as you get to know people, most of the time people don't walk up and be like, hello, I am Dawn. I am a human. What would my class be? I don't know. I am a human blank class, and this is my background. Like, people don't give you all of the information about themselves when you first meet them. Most people don't. Now, if somebody does, that's going to be an interesting aspect about them. But when it comes to their background and all that, like, let those things come up a little bit more naturally in conversation, or let it be things that perhaps the players learn about from other NPCs. Like, if they're a well-known NPC, other people might know this stuff and share it with them. This also helps to prevent aspects about their character from necessarily being a label. Now, your players might be writing down notes about the character of like stuff to help them remember and things that they're learning. But I try to avoid necessarily labeling the NPCs, because that's, I think, where you can fall into just simplifying a person into a label instead of it being like a complete, well-rounded NPC. Now, all of this is to say, you don't need to do this for every NPC. Every NPC that the party runs into is not going to be a whole, complete character. Like, you can have guards that are just a guard. You can have shopkeepers that are just a shopkeeper. Like, but if you find, especially you going in, you know, like, this is going to be a significant NPC, or if you find that your characters just have a really great interaction with an NPC, and suddenly it's like, oh, hey, maybe I will make this a reoccurring character, or, okay, well, the party has adopted this random NPC into their party, and now I have to figure out who they are. Like, you can fill in all of those details, and also this is where it goes into the like slow reveal. You can figure out all these things and let it slowly come up and flesh it out at the table. And you can also make changes, like, until it's kind of brought up at the table, you can change things. So even if you have notes on that NPC, if you realize, oh, this blank, very stereotypical villain NPC that I was just going to have in like 2 sessions is becoming a lot more relevant. Okay, I might go through and change some of the background that I had on them, as long as none of it has come up at the table, to make it more interesting, or make them less of a stereotype, make them more of a full, complete character. If you have an ongoing campaign and you're wanting to diversify your NPCs a little bit more, you don't need to like go back to the drawing board. Just start small. Add a couple each session, or add little hints of it in the background in the descriptions of the towns that folks are going in. Maybe you can kind of make it make sense in world. Like, the town they started out in was a smaller town, primarily all of one ancestry, or just a handful of ancestries, but as they travel throughout the world, they're meeting a lot more types of people as they're kind of traveling to new places. And also, these NPCs are going to be a lot more fun for you as the game master to play. I find it a little bit easier to play wider ranges of NPCs, because it helps me differentiate the NPCs. I'm not sitting there going like, okay, what's the small details that I did with it? Like, you can go big, or you can with the descriptions and getting into character, if that's something that you enjoy. Do you have any additional tips for how to create unique and diverse NPCs? Or what is your favorite NPC that you ever have played or encountered? I'd love to know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye! Hey folks, in today's video, we're going to be going over how to make your world feel